In 1898, Nikola Tesla was asked about the militarization potential of the radio-operated steel rowboat he was showing at Madison Square Garden's first electrical exhibition. Tesla allegedly replied, "You may yet live to see man-made horrors beyond your comprehension." Horror, for Tesla, was not about a particular machine, but its dormant and enigmatic potential. In this book, City of Global Tourism is presented as a horror in that sense. To see the photographs is to see the city as a man-made machine beyond our full comprehension. The city actively creates a backdrop of excitement and wonder for visitors while hiding labor networks out of plain sight. The city is not an innocent bystander, but shapes and is shaped by power in a way that is difficult to grasp because both cities are covered in very distracting articulations. There are giant marble structures, wide streets flooded by beautiful people, and loud buildings working hard to capture your attention and mark your place in the city. The photographs in this volume tie the two frenetic cities together and peek under the veil. Once those masks are jettisoned, we find each city's brutal machinations hiding in plain sight. This apparatus is the result of a renewed era of global tourism, state capitalist oligarchy, and a public obsessed with self-representation. All of these things combine to form an amalgamated, fractured mess, turning the new global city into a site of performance, thus revealing how public space and architecture are compelled to serve a new, undeniable civic role, as a backdrop to be experienced and shared. This was the introduction to the essay I wrote in this book that all started with a TikTok, because I'm interested in how media constructs our self-image and how it's constantly navigating through architecture. But of course, I also highly encourage you to buy the book. It's linked in the description below. Thank you to Iwan Baan, whose photography fills a lot of this video, and of course to Lars Muller Publishers for the opportunity to write. So welcome to the Extra Office. My name is Ryan Skavnicki. I'm a professor in and coordinator of the Virtual Architecture program here at Marywood University. This channel is dedicated to my research, thinking, and whatever else comes of it. Las Vegas has changed a lot in its self-image in my lifetime. This shift is visible in terms of mass media. Ocean's 11 presents Vegas as evil casinos and the heroic group that steals from them. But now we have movies like The Hangover, which take the bad behaviors Vegas encourages but places blame directly on the individuals, even leading to a scene where the neutral, good guy police officers make the main characters demonstrate getting hit with a stun gun to school children. Vegas used to be the city of sin, but now it's what happens here only happens here, which means the sins belong to you. The image of Rome has also changed. This is most legible through the "how often do you think about the Roman Empire" meme question that burned through the internet the last few years and is still doing so today. If you aren't familiar with it, in autumn of 2023, Artur Hulu, a history influencer and Roman reenactor, wrote on Instagram, "Ladies, many of you do not realize how often men think about the Roman Empire. You will be surprised by their answers."
Few times.
50 times?
More.
100 times?
More.
200 times?
More.
500 times?
Probably.
The answer to this question often reveals a big red flag because it'll be something like they built a society that dominated the world, or another will say like because their society was at its peak. And these are wild claims, especially because the vision they give of Rome is not one that historically existed, but some strange new vision of a collective dream. And today, trad social media influencers parrot talking points centered around the idea of Rome as this peak of Western culture, blaming many of society's problems on things that have been accomplished since then, like allowing women the right to vote and own property, or abolishing slavery. I mean, how else do you think the Romans got this stuff built? So Rome itself as an image today has been changed by political discourse. The virtues it might represent, plebeian direct action or some form of early sexual liberalism, have been co-opted by those showcasing only its traditional masculinity, conservative aesthetics, patriarchy, and socially autocratic architecture. Rome and Vegas are lying to us. They are doing everything they can to preserve these idealized images, but you can see right through it in the architecture itself. We assume Vegas is surreal, thin, dishonest, and new, and we also assume Rome is authentic, thick, honest, and ancient. For example, Las Vegas casinos are very real and physical. They show a close attention paid to the human body, not through proportions, but by haptic sensations felt by the feet and hands. Paris Las Vegas Casino is not even 25 years old, but it's accessed directly from the street via doors with solid brass handles. I became a bit obsessed with these door handles on my visits because they felt so unique and unexpectedly real. So the same door handles from its construction in April of '97 are blessed with a gentle patina today. Similar bodily sensations can be felt underfoot, a visual and textural simulation of the cobblestone streets of Europe pressed gently against your shoes when you step through the gambling tables and into the shopping area of Paris, Las Vegas. These moments frame Vegas as a surprisingly grounded and perceptible built environment, not some kind of fantasy land. And Rome itself isn't as honest as we presume. Like elsewhere, its architecture derives from using as little material as possible in providing the most effective visual. Trevi Fountain, seen at an angle in Baan's photographs, can also be understood as architecturally thin. In fact, it is the great Italian architect Palladio who gave birth to perspectival facades. The Church of San Giorgio Maggiore in Venice is an essential example of thinness in Renaissance architecture. It sits directly across from San Marco Square and utilizes a small footprint on the site but feigns a deep front. This allows the architecture to trick the eye from the other side of the water. There are even more sinister examples in many of the immense, majestic churches of Rome. If you can catch a moment between the crowds of tourists and reach out your hand to touch the marble, you might find the original marble has been covered or patched by simple drywall and painted to look like marble, to hide various things like electrical wire, speakers, or a few old cracks. And while Rome is apparently ancient, there are a ton of new things happening, and especially so in terms of image culture. For example, I found a classic influencer trap museum called Icono, where I got to dive into a ball pit surrounded by the aesthetic of ancient wonders. And while we assume Las Vegas is new and built in the middle of nothing, there were, of course, ancient societies of unknown size, whose wisdom is long gone, that are buried beneath the water being held by the Hoover Dam. The most tangible way that architecture reveals all of these issues is by how it turns the corner. I could say that the corners in Vegas and Rome are a symptom of each city's need, both historically and into today, to continue projecting an image of their ideal self. Each and every building in Vegas and Rome turns the corner, and the corners are of particular interest to architects because there are a lot of decisions to make in terms of design hierarchy, aesthetics, and material organization. The way that Vegas and Rome turn the corner, or that they turn the corner awkwardly, or that the corners end abruptly, these things persist in revealing the tectonics of collective expression. Meaning that the more awkward the corner, the more forced a city's desire is for an overall image that takes precedence over the individual resolution of a particular moment. So the corners of Vegas and Rome together are better understood as a successful civic backdrop. These corners privilege the continuation of an aesthetic treatment as a completion of the image of the city, rather than a commentary on a specific design intent. And this agreed upon issuance may be the preliminary guide to how a city may construct its image as a continual object. The new corner problem reveals the ways architectural decisions are no longer being made as innocent desires to emphasize, the horizontal versus the vertical or something like that. The new corner problem is how to visually continue the ideal image of a city without disruption. But what do we do about the new building in Vegas that doesn't have any corners? The building is, of course, the Sphere, a new 18,600 seat auditorium, but to call it just an auditorium is sort of selling it short. The Sphere boasts seats with haptic feedback, pinpoint sound, and currently the world's largest LCD screen. It promises to reach new heights, or is it depths, in the immersive theater experience, with a final price of a whopping $2.3 billion. It is, as they say, one of those things you have to see to believe, and belief will cost you. Tickets are very expensive for what appears to be basically an OmniMax screen, the same kind of experience I had as a kid at the Great Lakes Science Center Dome Theater. But there's something particular about the Sphere, its sense of scale and spectacle that strangely mirrors the scale and spectacle of the Colosseum. The Sphere and Colosseum both represent the height of architectural decadence, as monuments built by societies once claimed eternal. Give them bread and circuses and they will never revolt. The ancient Roman poet Juvenal wrote to describe a superficial pacification of the masses. It seemed for Juvenal that politicians found the ability to provide distractions rather than solutions to societal problems. $2.3 billion would certainly do a lot of good for the Las Vegas homeless population, which increased 14% between 2022 and 2023. Perhaps one day, the Sphere, like the Colosseum today, will be visited by tourists clamoring to get a look at a ruin from a past society that fell short of equity, care, and the redistribution of wealth, but remained decadent in its distraction. When you think about traveling to Rome or Las Vegas, two very different places, what do you imagine? I bet you're thinking about your ideal image. Sitting on a red Vespa in front of the Colosseum with a glass of wine and a bowl of pasta, or cranking the swing arm of a slot machine and hitting the jackpot with like Wayne Newton behind you or something. During your trip, with varying degrees of commitment, you'll naturally seek to create that image that speaks to your experience and share it with others. Yet there is a type of malaise, categorized generally as boredom, which is experienced by tourists in both cities while seeking and processing these images. Its most common culprit is the seemingly endless waiting in line one must withstand. This malaise compounds when I haven't got just the right shot of myself slurping up pasta, so I'll have to go to a new spot tonight and try to get it, right? An experience of life itself outside of these idealized images is filled with that boredom, and that boredom is really to save energy for when the moment is right, or to bask in the images when they turn out the way you hoped, or to plan and consider the next imaged experience. So the cities of Las Vegas and Rome represent an almost cosmic opposition for what the field of architecture considers the most sacred and the most profane of places. And Iwan Baan's photographs reveal them to be more similar than we thought. So architecture isn't just about the act of building, production, and design, but about the knowledge gained about society by evidencing its form. These photographs reveal society's form. It is the ideal image of the place that architecture serves. Now, the photographs in this book help us to see the lack of restful public infrastructure as a way of keeping people out who might ruin that ideal image. These are typically the images we don't share, because those images remind us of what the city hides and what it takes to fuel itself. This is what makes the city a man-made horror beyond our comprehension. It pushes people outside of the frame in order to maintain an image of ideal civic life. The machine of the city keeps us happily contained, imaged, and surveilled as long as we can remain the main character. I'm Scav, and I'll see you next time in the Extra Office.